In looking at the ability to keep Darth Vader alive after his defeat to Obi-Wan on Mustafar, one might think that the crucial moments and procedures were all performed once Vader returned to Coruscant. Without question, the brutal surgery that rebuilt and stabilized Vader physically, as well as the implementation of the suit and cybernetics that would sustain Vader over the next 2 decades, were necessary for his survival. But to look solely at these events would be to ignore the extensive and really miraculous efforts undertaken by both Sidious and Vader to ensure that the Sith Order's newest apprentice survived immediately after the duel on Mustafar, and then the return trip back to Coruscant. After looking at this initial half of Vader's survival, it demonstrates just how lucky Vader really was to carry on after Episode 3. Immediately after Obi-Wan's single strike with his lightsaber removed the majority of Vader's limbs, the Sith Lord's survival seems almost impossible, not merely in theory, but also within the lore that explains the immediate consequences. But it's here, in the immediate aftermath of the duel's conclusion, where we see how important Vader's efforts were in his own survival. The trauma caused by Vader's underestimation of the high ground initially made him weak to the point of being able to barely lift his head to look at Obi-Wan. Even more, the shock of the situation stunned and dazed Vader enough to where he couldn't focus his Force abilities. This left him unable to call his lightsaber towards him despite his desire to, nor could he do anything to put out the flames on his body once they ignited. So if Vader was too dazed to use the Force and now suffered severe burns to his entire body, how was he able to keep himself alive before Sidious arrived on Mustafar? As the novel, The Rise and Fall of Darth Vader makes clear, it was his anger and hatred of Obi-Wan that allowed him to live. In fact, it was the only thing that made him want to live another day. This rage allowed Vader to regain his concentration and refocus his Force abilities. This was crucial as it meant he could use his powers with the Force to keep himself conscious, as well as focus on getting himself away from the lava river still damaging his charred remains. It was Vader's hatred and anger that allowed him to use his mechanical arm to slowly drag himself up the lava river slope. This rage kept Vader alive long enough until Sidious arrived, and without Vader's efforts and the power he claimed through the dark side, the Sith Lord would have certainly died on Mustafar. But as Sidious arrived, Vader had done all that he could do, and knowing his master was there, he finally allowed himself to give in to the darkness and go unconscious, leaving his survival entirely in the hands of Sidious. As Sidious looked down at his badly damaged apprentice, the Dark Lord himself was at a crossroad, questioning if he should save Vader or find a new, more powerful apprentice. Ultimately, Sidious recognized that if Vader died, it wasn't likely that a more powerful apprentice would be found. Further, he knew the search would take years, time he didn't have, and tying Anakin Skywalker to the events performed by his master Darth Plagueis, wherein the Force itself created Anakin to restore balance, Sidious knew that Vader was too unique to give up on. And so the Dark Lord committed himself to doing everything he could to save his new apprentice. As the Revenge of the Sith novelization explains, as Sidious reached out to place his hand upon Vader's brow, he set his will upon Vader, beckoning for his apprentice to live, and repeating the words numerous times. Of course, Sidious would also be the catalyst for ensuring Vader was placed within a medical capsule for his return to Coruscant, an act that itself was crucial to the Sith Lord's survival. But Sidious would also do something much more important as they traveled from Mustafar to Coruscant. As Sidious remembered the journey only weeks later, he recalled that Vader was still not likely to survive once they made it to Coruscant. This forced him to use his powers with the Force to sustain Vader's charred body. We aren't told exactly what these powers were within the novel The Rise of Darth Vader, but it's clearly some version of Force healing, which has been utilized by Sith Lords like Darth Bane within Legends. Sidious's own master Plagueis was even able to use the Force to heal damaged tissues and rejuvenate his own body following an assassination attempt on his life. As Plagueis concluded, no powers were beyond a Sith Lord's reach, and which couldn't be mastered merely through the strength of will, and it's likely that Sidious used these healing abilities on Vader as they flew towards Coruscant. In using all of his powers with the Force, in addition to all of the potions and devices available to him at the time, Sidious clearly exerted himself fully in keeping Vader alive, and held back nothing to ensure his destiny with Vader was fulfilled. The combination of the efforts, undertaken first by Vader himself and then by Sidious, were both crucial and necessary to ensure Vader's survival. Once Vader returned to Coruscant, the medical droids would take over to fashion the Sith Lord with cybernetics that would keep him alive in the future. But without question, Vader was only able to cheat death through the power of the dark side, and it was these efforts by both Vader and Sidious that ensured Vader survived after his injuries on Mustafar. So there we have it, what Vader and Sidious did in the aftermath of Vader's defeat to Obi-Wan. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions. Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. Or perhaps follow us on Twitter at SW Reading Club for updates regarding the channel. Or support the channel through Patreon for access to exclusive rewards and discussions. If not for me, for having the ability to prevent it all.